key things about China, and I think this is one of the big issues that we see, is it is going to be the centre of air travel for Asia in particular, but probably the globe. What we are seeing is Boeing they're saying they're going to have 670 billion US dollars worth of aircraft between now and 2030. It's about 5,270 aircraft between now and then. So if you're involved in aviation or you're actually looking at where to grow to, those are some of the markets. Equally, we're seeing, obviously in New Zealand have their relationship with Air China, etc., and that's proving very well. But also we're seeing carriers such as China Southern start to move into this market and looking to create relationships with Qantas and Virgin, so we can anticipate even further growth on that. What does that mean? Well, you tend to see maps like this when you look at a route map of China. So it is about reach into a market. This is one of the route maps that we see, but it's also significant in the sense that where we have seen the growth is actually significantly out of the wider networks in China, and certainly the second-tier cities are starting to emerge as big growth markets. But it's also about China wants to be a global carrier and global carrier hub position in the market. So we can anticipate even further growth and investment in this area. So what does that mean for us? Well, I think Kevin touched on it before and Norm's touched on it as well. We are starting to see an emergence of what we call FIT or semi-FIT, so smaller groups travelling. And that's grown from around, I think, 8% last year to around 13% this year. So it is an emerging market and the changing travel story. But as you see there in the little bottom circle, Mono New Zealand as part of a group tour, as Kevin said, is still a very minor part of the market. So we've got a lot of work to do to sell the story of New Zealand. So the New Zealand story needs to look at how it targets. And sorry, a bit blanked out on this yellow graph here, but what it is this is the Hurun report, which actually shows for the Chinese elite. They rate New Zealand as the 12th most desired destination to travel to. So in terms of desirability, we're actually up there. We'd like to be up there with Australia because Australia's number 3. And anyone that went to the Olympics recently, well, there's no point in being 12th. You want to at least get a medal. Nobody else remembers you if you don't. So that's something we've got to aim for. And let's face it, Chinese affluence is going to have a significant impact on global business. This is the number of high net worth individuals between now and 2015. And as you can see, basically for China, it's essentially going to triple. But it's going to be about 1.4 million high net worth individuals. That's US dollars, 1 million of disposable income past your first property. So it's reasonably wealthy. So that's a market that we know is going to grow, and it's actually growing very rapidly and leading growth out of Asia in that sense. What it also means is China is leading the emerging cities growth. So about 404 cities, I think it is actually accounting, emerging cities are going to account for about 47% of global GDP between now and 2030. So. But when you have a look on the right-hand side of this curve, who is it being led by? Well, it's being led by cities like Shenzhen, Nanjing, etc. So if we're looking at where the emerging wealth is going to come from, it's actually about a number of cities in China that are going to emerge as the ones that are going to produce global GDP. So how do we reach into those cities is one of the keys. If you look at some of the McKinsey reports lately, this was what they're talking about, which is emerging power clusters or city clusters. So approaching regions is an obvious one, but it also means that you can maybe look at key cities within a region as a way to actually learn and then grow from that city out into other regions. How do we do that? So as Auckland Airport, we do invest in market. One of the things that we see as key is actually a multi-channeled approach. So we've heard us talking about traditional channels and the emerging online space. This is by a graph in terms of the stage of process of purchase for travel. So you see there on the left-hand side the consideration set. So will I actually consider you as a country and permanent destinations to go to? And you see there 39% is that still driven by traditional marketing. So, we need to be in that space. We need to be talking to agents. When we move to the next layer, we see that actually word of mouth. So this is where online starts to play a big role. Word of mouth online research accounts for 37% of evaluation, but actually travel agents also accounting for 26% of evaluation. So we need to bring everyone along the pipeline. When we move to the right-hand side, when it comes to purchase, most people are still purchasing through a travel agent, but an emerging growth path of online and also direct channels. So how do we talk to those people? So at the moment we have a number of campaigns running in with traditional wholesale markets in China, and we say traditional, but what you're very clearly seeing there is a non-traditional product of New Zealand. It's not about scenery and sheep, as we've maybe portrayed in the past, but it's about quality experiences. Interested in listening to the export guys this morning. Again, there's an opportunity to start talking about wine, start talking about the great seafood products that we have within that story of coming to New Zealand and having a premier New Zealand experience. So we're starting to see an emergence of that story. Sorry, but is the whole New Zealand story, and we start to move beyond brand and product into the deliverables. And I guess what we talked about yesterday is New Zealand's still ranked 19th in terms of the World Global Tourism and Travel Competitiveness scale from the World Economic Forum. So 19th's about being on page 3 of Google, and anyone that's been on page 3 of Google knows that you don't get much. So we don't want to be 19th. You know, we've got to be up in the top 5 to really gain. And when you see it, actually we have a fantastic brand, so we're ranked number 5. We have great attitude to visitors, so we're number 1. But where we start to fall over is we're actually, in terms of culture, we're ranked 83rd. In terms of price and competitiveness, we're ranked 84th out of 137 countries. In terms of visa, we're actually ranked 82nd. So we've made incredible progress, and it's really improved, but we're still ranked 82nd in terms of our peers. So what's the whole New Zealand story? So we have to look beyond just the marketing, the product and the brand, but also how it gets delivered to our Chinese friends. And the rest of the world is moving. You know, I mean, I think the guys said it. Basically, the rest of the globe is waking up. You're seeing the US and Europe, so UK is actually changing its visa policies as we speak. They're trying to broker a deal at the moment to improve visas. The White House already being lobbied by Hawaii, for example, as a destination, so actually enable people to come to Hawaii with a visa waiver. Not the mainland, just bring them to Hawaii, that's okay, you know. And that, what will that do in terms of our global competitiveness, you know, if that happens? So we've got to be aware of those things. So it's about the whole product. And we heard online, I'm going to wrap up quite quickly, but you know, online will play such a considerable part, and it's an emerging part. China is already twice the online population of the USA. All right, so about 530 million today. So it's very big, and we know that. And most of those are in Tier 1, Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. So if you think about that city cluster approach again, it's not about rural, it's actually about hitting those Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. What does that mean? Well, actually by 2015, it will actually be the largest e-commerce market in the world. All right? So is it going to shape what we do? Absolutely. Is it going to change the way actually the rest of the world thinks about e-commerce? Yes, absolutely. Are Chinese companies actually going to lead the world in e-commerce? Absolutely. So we need to find those partners that can help us. And China is very social. You know, anyone that's spent a lot of time in China is very social, but it's actually really moving fast. So microblogs, I hope that you can see that, 296% growth in the last 12 months. All right, so still 46% of the online population is now microblogging in China, but it grew at a rate of 296%. When you look at actually just social media, grew at 3%. So Sina Weibo has been mentioned a number of times. That's why. It's growing, and it's growing really rapidly. So we've got to be thinking about who are our partners in that space. And anyone that knows China, it's about picking Chinese partners, right? The trusted partners in that market are different than the ones in other markets. So we've got to go and make those enduring friends and build trust through those partnerships. And that will create word of mouth. This is our Luxury New Zealand site in China. that we run. And one of the great things about that for us is actually we get to ask Chinese, what product do you want to actually see? Right? So we should be thinking, we've got social media, we're talking to this audience, how do we actually become Chinese designed products for China? Talk to the market and it will tell you.